I recently made a mistake, fellas. There it is, right there. Just like what my mother did back on the day I was born, I just gave birth to this steamy pile of ship. A steamship. Listen guys, that's the best joke in this script. Some of the more woke among you noticed that on January 1st, 2024, a particular animation produced by the beloved Walt Disney Company 100 years ago entered the public domain and became public property. You might recognize the animation. It's about a subordinate little eunuch that works on a steamboat as a potato peeler. In the animation, he ignores his work responsibilities, abuses animals, and floats around with a topless rodent while making a ruckus on the ship. A steamship. See, there it is. Come on now. Now that this version of the mouse was free to use, a lot of game devs out there thought it'd be a good idea to make some games about him. What kind of games, do you ask? Now I know what you're thinking there, sitting on your toilet. We get it, Luke. The Steamboat Willie animation entered the public domain and you made a horror game about it. No. Well, okay, yeah, but that's not exactly how it happened. See, after struggling with my other game, Oedipus, it doesn't have a Steam page yet, so I'm gonna ask you to wishlist it in your heart. I decided to take a break and start working on another horror game about traversing a monster-ridden world where it snows so much that people move around via snow tunnels and never venture up to the dangerous and frozen surface. But because I couldn't go a day without proving to the world how much of a disappointment I am, I decided to drop that game and start making a whole different game about Sisyphus, who doesn't push boulders up mountains but punches them like a Chad. He also punches Roman soldiers like a Chad. Now if you find yourself saying, Luke, those other games looked cool, we don't want to hear about your Willy, we want to hear about those other games. Papa Worms here. You're gonna like this, I promise. Really though, if you think either of those games sound interesting, write a comment about it right now, or maybe I'll make a video about them, and maybe I'll even finish them. Maybe. Who knows? But this video is about how I decided to make a Steamboat Willie horror game and how it led me to my ruin. But first, I want to give glorious praise to this video sponsor, the subscribe button. Why don't you just slide on down there and give it a little smooch? Speaking of which, did you know that 99.99% of you haven't finished wiping your bums yet? I think that's what this graph means. It's kind of weird, you should finish that up. Isn't that crazy? And you see the little like button and the bell icon? You should go over there and... Had to be done. Here's becoming an F-tier YouTuber. This video doesn't have a sponsor, move along. Alright, let's get into how I created this beast. Here you can see my initial build of the game, back when Mickey was just a Pez dispenser, and here he is with an actual body. Wait, why does it look like Mickey's head isn't even in sync with his body? Hang on, let me get to the bottom of this here. Hey, yeah, what's up with Mickey's head? Yeah, can we get that fixed? Not enough budget, where did the budget go? OnlyFans! For the backgrounds of the game, I decided that I would just yoink the original backgrounds from the animation, since it's become free game and all. Honestly, I am rightfully afraid of Disney, so even though I am admitting publicly to the internet world that I stole their backgrounds, please nobody tell them. I want to tell them myself. Here's some of the scenes I used after touching them up, pretty liminal if you ask me. As I was piecing this game together without actually knowing what I wanted the finished product to be about. Bad idea by the way, don't recommend. I thought it would be cool to have some breaches on the ship that you'd have to fix as you go from scene to scene. As you can see, Mickey here found a breach on the ship and doesn't give a single Donald Duck about it. Now the ship has health, and if you let the breaches stay long enough, the ship sinketh. I decided pretty early on that the repair tool should be a mallet, but check this one out. Yeah, you like that, Mickey? Okay, here's the mallet, and I also made a second type of breach that looks like some wires sticking out. At first, I made it so the player could jump up to the bridge and steer the ship. They would just be floating down a straight path, avoiding logs and collecting booty, as you can see here. This whole steering the ship thing, I thought it looked good, and I guess it was kind of fun for like 2 seconds. But despite loving it so much, I decided to cut it out of the game and out of my life. Just like what my father did to me. So get that trash out of here. It was around this time that I became exceptionally paranoid that our pal Walter Disney was going to find me using and abusing his only begotten son and stick the whole cast of Cars 2 on me. So I made some modifications to our little unpolished turd. There we go. Hideously unrecognizable. A face only a mother could love. You're adopted. Here's where I made the first batch of NPCs. There's this rude boss cat that has a spit fetish in the original animation. I think his name is Pete. And the first appearance of Minnie Mouse in a bikini. And I added that bird who does nothing but roast Mickey through the entire animation. Alright, so far we've got Mickey running around looking like he was dropped as a child. We have a mid-gameplay loop of fixing breaches with a hammer and keeping the ship from sinking. Time to add the spooky. This was meant to be a scary game, and the scariest thing we've seen thus far is my inability to recognize this project as a waste of time. First thing we've got to do is add some more scary areas of the ship. In the animation, it doesn't show anything within the lower levels of the ship, and I thought it would be nice to be able to go down there. So I had to create this lower deck or whole place or whatever it's called. And I never learned boat names. I just remember Pirates of the Caribbean teaching me that this is a girl's stern.
Considering where your left hand is, I'd say we're more than that.
While I was making this, I thought it might be cool to add a bunch of faces as smudge marks on the walls to make it more creepy, but because it's so dark down there, I imagine this will go largely unnoticed. Since there are now going to be parts of the game that are much darker, Mickey needed a light source, and here he is with his lantern. Smudge mark faces in the wall are scary and all, but now it's time to make some actual monsters. Oh, besides you, I mean. While McUgly is walking around repairing issues on the ship, my idea is that there will be monsters which appear on the same screen that Mickey is on, and if they catch the player, they will kill them and send them back to the cabin with one less heart. If the player loses all their hearts, the game is over and they will need to restart the game. Does that sound like fun? My past self certainly thought so. Hi, how are you? What up guys, it's Future Luke. I just want to let you know that this little plan of yours ends up causing a lot of problems, and it actually ends up giving you depression. Get out of here, you loser. Yeah, nobody asked you, you idiot. Go back to the future and be depressed. Got him. This is gonna be a great plan. I spent some time designing monsters and came up with 4 monsters I would implement into the game. The first one I came up with is very simple. It was just a hand that would reach out of the darkness and grab the player. I decided the hand would appear on the stage, slide to hover directly over the player's location, wait for the player to stand still, and then swoop down to grab the player. And here's what happens when Mickey gets caught by the hand. Oof. Got him. Here's the second monster I decided to add. It's a skinny guy that quickly scampers after the player along the floor. I decided to name this monster the Screamer, although I've had several people tell me that they've decided to call it the Dog for whatever reason. I've also seen people say they think it might be Minnie, as if she had become starved or super dehydrated or something. Not my words. As you can see here, his final design changed a little bit from the original sketch. I really liked his sunken eyes, but I changed his sharp teeth, and I decided it would be interesting if he had a lower lip that dangled under his chin. One of my Patreon supporters, Mackenzie, suggested that maybe the guy could be frightened or deterred by light. I liked this, so I implemented it into the game. It was a bit of a half-hearted attempt, because I only made the little scamp stop when the player's lantern light was touching him. He doesn't stop when any other light from the ship is touching him. Here's what it looks like when the Mixers gets got by this monster. Nice. Nice one. The third monster is probably one of my favorites and didn't deviate much from his original sketch art. He's pretty large in both height and belly girthitude. He has very thin arms and legs that end in points as if the hands and feet have rotten off or something. And the eyes and mouth on his face are all sewn shut. At first glance you might not notice that he actually has 2 mouths. The one I mentioned on his face that's sewn shut, and then a much larger mouth below the face that looks more like a slit open throat lined with sharp teeth. I decided to give him a stained bib, mostly to add some contrast to his body, but also to hit home the idea that my boy eats. And I named this guy the Eater. Listen guys, it should be apparent at this point I'm not very good at naming things, just like I was about to name this game the Bathening. The mechanics for this monster are actually kind of unique from the others in the sense that he won't chase after you initially or try to catch the player. Initially my idea for this guy was that he would be sensitive to light like the Screamer, but not in the same way where he would be stopped by the light, but instead he would be attracted to it if you kept it on long enough. If you had your lantern on for a certain amount of time, he would sense it and rush at you, moving faster than any of the other monsters. One of my Patreon supporters, Stefan, pointed out that this didn't make a whole lot of sense because his eyes were sewn shut, so he couldn't see the light. He was feeling the light on his skin, Stefan. Stefan smartly suggested that maybe instead the monster should be triggered by the sound of the player repairing a breach, since the monster's ears look to be perfectly functional. I was very happy to swap out these mechanics for something much more intelligent. Thank you, Stefan, for being smart. And here's what it looks like when our big boy eats himself a McNugget. Ooh, sloppy. The fourth monster is a mannequin. I don't think there was a ton of creativity that went into her design. I just thought it would be cool to add a mannequin. Because mannequins are cool. Look at them over there with their sexy bodies. The mannequin is wearing a wedding gown with a flowered headpiece and a veil over her headless neck. She has no arms, and the bottom of her dress is meant to be badly soiled. Now, all the monsters have unique mechanics, but the mannequin is possibly the most unique of them all, as she is not bound to a single scene. What I mean is, if the player encounters a monster and then runs off the scene to another scene, the monster will not be following them onto the new scene, and the player will be safe from that monster. Well, that's not the way it works with the mannequin, baby boo. I decided that when the player encounters the mannequin and then leaves the scene, the mannequin will chase the player from scene to scene to scene until the mannequin catches the player. So how does one escape this lovely lady? Why would you want to? The best idea I could come up with initially was to create a little voodoo doll thing that was dressed up in a tuxedo that would randomly spawn in a random scene after the chase began. What the player would have to do is go from scene to find where that dapper doll was dropped and destroy it, all while being chased. So not only would the player have to realize the connection between the mannequin and the voodoo doll, which would appear on a random scene somewhere on the boat that they didn't know about, but they'd have to go hunting for that voodoo doll while they're being chased by the mannequin, and while other monsters are appearing on the scene also to chase them. Not my problem. It's literally your problem, you dumbabs. So I folded. I decided that I would allow the player to destroy the mannequin with the hammer, the only monster you'd actually be able to hurt. And here's what it looks like when the rat gets caught by the mannequin. Oh. Step on me next, mommy. When playing the regular gameplay, those are the 4 monsters that can appear to help give Mickey some chiropractic work. But there are actually 5 monsters in the game. The 5th monster can only be found in the tutorial, a part of the game I haven't mentioned yet. Here's a rundown of what happens in the tutorial. Mixters, who actually looks normal, learns how to fix a breach, gets ordered around by Captain Peter, fixes some more breaches, gets ordered around some more, then gets sent down to the hole where he first encounters the 5th monster. When I was trying to come up with a design for the tutorial monster, my thoughts were that I should keep him small and insignificant, since the player would only see him in the tutorial. That and the main purpose of the monster was just to end the tutorial and to teach the player a very important lesson. And that is that they're screwed. I quickly sketched up a sketchy little fellow that was basically a skull with a couple of hoofed legs that crawled around on the ground. Here's his crawling animation and what he looks like when he gets the player. I didn't even come up with a name for this little ankle biter. That's how short-lived his reign of terror was. I just didn't like him. So I turned him into a caterpillar. Whoa, wait. Oh my lord. I like this guy a lot more than the little terror. I decided that when you get sent down to the hole by Captain Pete Beat the Meat, you'll discover a giant pile of turd with a face sticking out of it, and flies trying to climb into your ears. You know the feeling. At first, when the player goes down there, they'll be all freaked out and confused, trying to hit the turd-encased face, but with no reaction. Then they will leave the bottom hole, only to find out that there's no one on the ship anymore. Not sure what to do, they will go back down into the hole and find that the face and the poo is gone. And then when they turn to leave the second time, the caterpillar would jump out and spank them. And from that point in the game on, Mickey would have the face of the caterpillar. I really like this new tutorial sequence with this monster in it, but as we'll talk about a little bit later, it has some strange story implications that don't quite make sense. We'll talk about it in a moment. It was about this time where I got more people involved with the playtesting and I ran into a serious issue. The game's performance was absolutely horrible. Still is, by the way. I only fixed as much as I had to. One of the major issues was that anytime a player entered the scene where there was to be a monster, the game would lag. This ruined any amount of suspense or surprise that the monsters could have had, and it needed to go. You see, what was happening is that every time the player entered a new scene, everything on that scene gets loaded up and pops into existence right then and right there. Those of you who know about how games work know that loading everything up every time the player enters a small scene is a huge no-no, and that I am an idiot. Unfortunately, this method of loading everything in when the scene is opened is integral to the main functions of the game. So if I wanted to fix that delay, I would need to deconstruct the entire game and rebuild it. Little did I know, doing this would give me depression. Yo, what up? I just want to swing back by and say that I was right and I told you so, and you're a loser. Oh, it looks like you got a little bit of Sagandi on your shirt. Sagandi's nuts, fish. Alright, I'm out. Enjoy depression, dingus. Because I know you're interested, here's a super detailed breakdown of how I tore the game apart and put it all back together with new mechanics. Oh my freaking gosh. What the freak? What do these errors even mean? The game freak just opens and then crashes. What the freak is going on? What the freak is going on? Alright, that wasn't so bad. Only took about 5 months. We need to start wrapping this game up. What more do we need? Microtransactions. Actually, I decided to add a bunch of NPCs with quests that the player could complete to get some extra items at the shop. Here's some of the NPCs I whipped out of my belly button. Hold up, Luke. Are you drawing furries? As far as the quests go, I just slapped a bunch of really lame objectives in there for the different levels, such as go collect 5 coins, count how many passengers are on the ship, find my lost dignity, etc. Wait, Goofy? What the yuck happened to you? I got something for you under this trench coat, Mickey. Garf. I slapped together a main menu, and after finding ways to hide as many of the bugs as possible, I called it good and published the beast. So let's finally talk story. The timeline is pretty simple. They are on a ship going through something they call the Mudmouth Sound, and they believe the sound is cursed. In case you didn't know, I certainly didn't. A sound is a narrow body of water connected to an ocean that separates an island from the mainland. Mickey gets curb stomped and ends up with a facelift. Passengers arrive on the boat and they ask him to do some quests such as setting off an explosive hidden in a suitcase, counting the number of passengers who have suddenly disappeared, burning a pile of important documents for shady reasons, chances. Then the sun goes down, the monsters come up, Mickey has to avoid them while still keeping the ship afloat. I mentioned earlier that Mickey having his head clapped had some weird implications on the story that aren't necessarily good. Why was Mickey killed to have his body taken over by the caterpillar? Assuming that the player is playing as the caterpillar the entire time after the tutorial, there really isn't anything that changes. The game would be the exact same if Mickey didn't get taken over by the caterpillar monster. Or would it? Another part of the story that hasn't quite been figured out yet is if Mickey is the caterpillar monster, then why are the other monsters so eager to kill him? Or in other words, what is the sweet, sweet lore? Anyone who has played the game to completion probably noticed that on the winning screen there is a page of paper that is mostly blank. My intention there was to write some info hinting at the background and the lore of the game, but I didn't want to. Instead, I'm going to leave that up to you guys. I want you to tell me what you think should be written on that piece of paper at the end of the game. Tell me in the comments of this video. Whoever's comment has the most upvotes, I'll put their comment on that blank sheet of paper at the end of the game. If you don't have any ideas, go read through what everyone else has written and vote for whichever comment you think is the best, funniest, dumbest, whatever. Go wild, I don't even care. Just keep in mind YouTube might censor your comment out if you get a little bit too much. Okay, the game is made. Does the game work? If we ignore all the performance issues and the bugs, I would say, Alright, but is the game scary? As a developer, this spaghetti code scares me a lot. Okay, but is the game fun? If you like to lose a lot? That accurately describes my life. Mine too. Well, I am currently getting over my depression by paying for lots and lots of subscriptions to OnlyFans. No. Oh yeah, and some of you might be wondering if I ended up getting in trouble with Disney. I don't think I'm significant enough to even be noticed by them, so I wrote them an email on their website.
Dear Walter Disney, I stole something from ya. Watch my latest video to see what it was. And submit. If you thought this video was interesting and you would like to see some of my other projects, subscribe. If you want to try playing this game, you can find it on itch.io and play it for free. There's a link to the game in the description of this video. If this video does really well, I might think about adding new monsters to the game, but if not, I'll probably just let this game rot in peace. If you have any interesting ideas for new monsters, let me know in the comments. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe. Thank you to all my subscribers, and a special thanks goes to my Patreon supporters, Stefan, Jonah, and Mackenzie. You guys are awesome. Go on, go get them. Sick on. And to all the rest of you who made it this far in the video, you know I love you.
Just one hit. One flippin' hit.
Okay.
Like seriously, I'm not playing.
Okay, I am running. I'm going to run directly straight to.
كده 4 مشاة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هذا وجهه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Ну что мне с тобой делать? Ну ебать. И все заново, ну нет.
Whoa, what the heck is that?
Did chord.